I just went live. Haha! It's happening! Okay. My heart is teeter-pattering. Okay, you look beautiful. Oh, don't forget, guys, releve on the waterfalls, right? Releve on the waterfalls? Okay. Okay. How are you feeling? Good? Because I'm going to ask you to all turn off, and then I'm gonna start the show.
Good luck, guys.
Bye, bye.
Hello, welcome. My name is Merica May. I curated this show and made the second piece. We started this project about a month and a half ago. My first text to my really good friend Yoshiro was on April 4th. And we started rehearsing with the dancers at the end of April. And we always targeted performing this performance as the world reopened. So right now, at the beginning of June, the world has rapidly evolved over the past week and a half. And we went back and forth discussing whether or not we wanted to still perform right now. And ultimately, we decided that yes, we want to perform right now and that we should. So we're going to perform as a celebration of togetherness, of humanity, and as an act of support for the efforts that are happening around us. And we'd like to redirect part of today's focus back to the important movements that are happening around us. And in an effort to support those movements, we set up a direct link in the YouTube live description to donate to the colorofchange.org. It's an organization committed to creating a more humane and less hostile world for Black people in America. And I think we've already met our target, so thank you everyone for contributing. Finally, a group of artists will be joining us after the show with the dancer and dance critic Eva Alt, and she'll be moderating and sort of leading the discussion, but also answering questions from the chat. So if you guys want to add any comments, she'll be listening there. And if you don't want to see the chat, just make your YouTube screen as big as you can. You can maximize it, and the chat should disappear. So lastly, a quick note about what you're about to see. This is George above me. He's called in from Spain. Hi, George. He's going to start with singing us a lullaby, and then after that, he's going to build the music for the rest of the work. And as he's building that music, the dancers will join. And it takes just a little bit to build. So if you want to look at the program, you can look at the program then or donate. But after he builds the music, we'll start, and then we'll run through the rest of the work. There's a program in the link below that has more information about everyone. And I'm going to turn myself off now, and George will be in charge. I will see you on the other side.
Este verano acabó. Es un día largo en en ti pienso el sentimiento y me distraigo. Ya no me hago daño, mente a salvo hablo. Yo no escribo, bailo. Es mejor así que lo que vi. Yo te llevo de la mano, vamos, sin temor al resultado. El terreno ya no está todo callado. A lo lejos ve un caballo que nos mira. Es como un día lo soñé. Hace tiempo ya que lo veo claro. Quizá vuelva, quizá me equivoque otra vez. Siento que las horas han robado. Manipulo cepa muerta. Tristemente deja un hueco en la tierra. Ha abortado el manzano regalado. Es el fin de lo que fue. Desconchada queda la pared, quebró el parque. Pensé que querrías saber. Pensé que sabrías por qué.
Magnanimous. Please forgive the boys who missed belt loops and batted balls in the first Friday of the month. Graduate from high school with a beautiful soul. I never caught anything thrown, but I am prepared to forget smirks. Here is some scotch and soda to bathe your wounds. You would do well to drink a dry martini as night falls. Of course, this is really me who is trying to make it and dial my own salvation out of anything goes. It turns out the Greeks were not that easygoing. Nobody turns out to be that easygoing, but I am against scolding anyway. Somebody told me I should worry about redemption. Somebody else told me I should worry about reconciliation. A third party, very clever looking, told me they were the same thing. Then a guy I know said you cannot plow the same field twice. That's Greek too, but tiresome. What's the use of an oracle that guesses wrong or issues amphibole? Sometimes a white dove is what you need, but you always win with a white pony. You can afford more than you think. Save nothing for later. You will find there will gradually be no later. Nostalgia. I love those Sunday mornings after nights of impossible drinking. I've never been as lucid again. Cheerful disenchantment. Once nothing matters, nothing matters. Later we go to Serendipity for elaborate ice cream. We liked the name and liked that we knew what the name meant. That was long before we knew what every name means. And it often arranged things, gathering us together with people we came to know later or never. The Cliché on Greenwich Avenue had the charming property of being owned by gay twins and a life expectancy of 10 minutes because gangsters are never patient. Procol Harum and MacArthur Park came later, but I think we listened to Pretty Ballerina and marveled at their viola da gamba. Our sophistication was paper thin and immensely self-congratulatory, but, you know, I didn't care then, and I don't care now. Finally, Easter 2020. I love Easter. It's great when people rise from the dead, even without the glorified bodies they never had in the first place. Instead, as now, being merely unavoidable. I smile under my mask, I think, but forget to say I'm sorry. I notice people are still eating ham sandwiches. Their mouths are not dead yet. Mouths last the longest, blowing smoke rings, eating chocolate bunnies, saying, "Good morning, honey," even if trenches are being dug quite close by.
Okay, I'm gonna start the Google Meet. Hello?
Hello.
Okay, I think the world can hear us. So, I'm going to put my headphones off. Ava? Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Eva.
Mhm.
Hi, guys. I feel like I know some of you from like some programs of years past. Everything good?
Yes, relieved. Relieved that we made it through without anyone's internet collapsing in on itself.
Yeah, it's amazing how technology continues to like fail us at this time.
Apparently, one of the dancers didn't see anyone else, so she danced blind for us.
Wow. That's incredible.
But I think it went okay. So,
And her boyfriend is the reason why that happened because I joined my video too early.
oh yeah, Harrison, you were supposed to come late.
My fault.
Apparently the sound is not so good. Let me see if I
He
can.
said, I'm in the middle. I am making my entrance right now.
So Harrison, so Harrison.
So Ava prepared a few questions for everyone. I don't know, Ava, do you want to say anything or?
Sure. Well, for anyone joining who doesn't know who I am, my name's Eva, and
sorry.
No, it's okay. And I'm a dancer, and I teach dance and write about dance, and I really just enjoyed this performance. I think that, you know, feeling inspired by like the collective energy, and I'm sure you guys all relate a little bit, but the last few months have brought a lot of reflection in my life. Just not having like the sacred space of a studio or being able to see live shows has like, you know, brought a lot of like interesting questions, I think, about, you know, new media and dance, which like we saw like such a, you know, great example today. And then also just excited about dancers making their own work, which is, you know, something more new. And then, you know, of course, in the last week and a half, the extremely important conversations about racial inequality, especially in the dance world. So I'm just excited to chat with you guys and like learn more about you and what we just saw. So I actually wanted to start with Merica, who put this together and choreographed the first piece, and ask her about just her approach, and also dancers like chime in on like what it was like working on it too. And you know, just how I was like inspired by the bodies in the piece, composed of different, you know, genders, and like talk about that a little bit. But yeah, just want to hear from you.
Yeah, I'm just trying to manage the sound. Apparently sound is not so wonderful, so I'm sorry, everyone. But yeah, the piece for me, I was just on zooming my brains out, I think, like the rest of the people who have office jobs, and was also watching all these other pieces coming online from all the dancers who were in isolation from COVID. And it was really inspiring, and I just wanted to sort of participate. And I was really into the idea that bodies were everywhere, but they were still together. And I also just thought it was an opportunity to be really close to people, which is really different from watching dance on a stage. So the media is a really different format, and I think it's kind of a new thing that's fun to explore. So it's like a silver lining in a way. Instead of being really sad that we don't have a stage, we have like a new one that we can test out. And yeah, it was really fun. It was to bring all my friends or friends of friends together and to make something, even though everyone was really far apart.
It's so cool. I mean, I think just to like keep going with that topic, I'd love to talk a little bit about the difference between creating dance for a stage versus for something like this format or film. I just watched the Mark Morris show last week, and in the Times he didn't refer to his pieces as dances but as video dances. So for all the people who created dance films here, so Cassie and also Kyle, just wanted to hear from you guys about, you know, what does a camera give that maybe a stage does not, or like what do we lose, what do we gain? Yeah. Cassie, you go first.
Sure. I just really liked the opportunity to explore how we could use movement as more of a script and just get really intimate. And, you know, I think for all of us, dance is our language, but how could we make it a little bit more like a dialogue, I guess? So that was kind of my goal. And to tell a story about, you know, my film was about addiction, and it was based on someone's experience who I'm very close to. So I was able to literally take a dialogue that he and I had about that experience and turn it into dance. So I don't know. Does that answer the question?
Very cool.
I think the coolest part for me, though, watching your piece was like when I watched it last year, I didn't know it was about addiction, so I interpreted it about like breakup or something very literally.
Yeah, I think.
And I was like, whoa, the whole piece was different. And then now when I watch it, it's totally different again. So it's like, it's kind of cool for me to read it in so many different ways, even though you had like a different intent. So.
Sure. And I think like we all can relate to an experience where we've been in a relationship that may be codependent, or to experience like the push and pull of something that may give you relief in the moment, but maybe isn't healthy in the long run. You know, it's cool to kind of explore themes like that just kind of bring everybody together. But also want to give a shout out to John Resner, who's in this direction for me. He was the editor of the film, and he really just kind of brought it to life. So grateful for him. So amazing. And that's what's great about film too. I mean, like, we can make movement, but the editing and the direction, like, those are the tools that really turn it into something more. And you don't really get that on a stage. So
I would say that a difference between dance on film and dance on stage is that you're dealing with the frame in film, and the director or the performers have to really keep that in mind. And the frame is going to set the intention for the whole piece. So when you're in a theater, you can kind of look wherever you want on the stage. The wings are the borders. But on dance on film, the frames are the borders. And wherever the camera goes is what you're going to see. You don't have as much freedom as the viewer, so you have to have a lot of intent with what you are shooting, or in our case, how we framed ourselves in this format. But it was really fun to be able to do dance on film in this way during this time, because we're all starved of that live performance feeling, which allows us to socialize and interact with other artists and other dancers. And this, for me personally, was the first time I've been able to interact artistically with other dancers in months. So it was hugely a therapeutic outlet for me, but it was also a really creative, interesting way to bring these we started off on Zoom, Google Hangout, this filming technology into a synthesis for a live dance performance, which I thought it was genius. So bravo, Merica.
It was great, yes. Kyle, do you want to talk a little bit about same sort of topic, but in regards to your film?
Yeah, I guess for what we were working on, it was sort of my goal to create something that could eventually be done on a stage in one run through and work, but that could simultaneously be broken up and show various backgrounds and also function. So I think that we have a lot of, you know, stage work that doesn't necessarily film well, and because you do miss out on being the viewer in the audience and getting to choose what you look at. And then we have a lot of dance that is created specifically for film. I wanted to take a look at, can you make something that works in both realms?
Yeah. There's different freedoms, I think, with both. It actually reminds me, I watched this interview on YouTube a couple days ago with Tilda Swinton and the artist Gregory Crewdson. I think it was for the Yale photography program. They put it on YouTube, and she talked a lot about how she doesn't consider herself an actor. Because one of the things she thinks most about is the frame, and she finds that like she thinks less about her performance and more about the frame. Like you guys have been looking at this like green tree behind me, and it's like as valuable as what I'm saying. So it's almost like when you're on the stage, you have the freedom to think about like, you know, not so much the frame, but really yourself. And then once you're put in the frame, you really have to think about things in a different way, because as soon as you disappear, you're gone, basically. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the questions in the chat. Let's see.
There may not be any. I have no idea.
What you guys are eating. Let's get this one. Okay, so what were you going to say, Merica?
I don't know if there's any questions, but if there's any questions,
no, there aren't any, but there's lots of compliments.
Yeah. Okay, no questions. That's good. Fine.
Well, one other thing I've been thinking a lot about, which is kind of more of like a deeper, more philosophical way of thinking about the relationship of being a dancer, a professional dancer, and performing. And Harrison, you were kind of getting at this a little bit with like, I just miss performing for a live audience. And so like, and open to anyone who wants to chat, but, you know, have you guys had thoughts about like, you know, what is dance without a live audience? And the thing that I'm most excited about is dancers really taking, you know, the initiative to create their own work like we saw today. So just like, you know, any thoughts there on like, you know, new media or new ways of performing when we can't all get, you know, 5,000 people in a theater?
I mean, I feel like it definitely, I mean, I miss it big time. I think we almost are doing this out of necessity. At least that's how I feel. I don't know if anything will ever replace or replicate the feeling of performing in front of a large audience, but these are the circumstances that we're in, and we just have to keep going as artists, you know, to kind of like survive. And it's opening up opportunities for us to be creative and use our art in other ways, which is amazing. Oh, sorry.
I think something that we miss is, yes, that audience, that like large gathering of people. But now we're kind of forced to bring quality to our work because we don't really know how many people are going to see it. There's a potential for many, many people to see it because it's online, but you never know who's going to tune in. But I think there's quality in live performance, but there's also quality in film all the time. But I feel like right now, with everything that's going on, the art has to have a lot of intention, because I think people are going to be looking for art to kind of make sense of what's happening in the world and help them what they're going through individually, hopefully.
And think about how many like people could see a City Ballet live stream that might never have the resources or ability to see it live, which is exactly what you're saying. I actually hope in the future we have both, because I think the live performance is like some special way of, you know, dissolving the like sort of technological world, which we're all, you know, so attached to. Right now it's all we've got, but it's opening so many doors for people to see art. So I hope in the future that we kind of have like a marriage of the two.
A marriage is the right way to say it, because I think if you take away it being a live event, then there's not this excitement around the event, you know, and really bringing people together for a moment. But if it's live and then always on forever, it's not the same urgency. But I with you that it's nice. It was great the digital season that City City Ballet put out because it was able to reach a huge audience. But I think New York City Ballet is looking forward to the time when we have the live performances as a special event, a special moment. That the draw of a live performance is it happens once. You got to be there. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
If it's live and then
so one question I want to take from the audience was if you guys knew each other before or you met through this experience, and also just what the biggest challenge was in rehearsing in terms of the platform and stuff like that. I think for anyone to answer.
As a special event, a special moment, that the draw of
you guys are laughing.
once, you got to be there.
Hi, I'll jump in really quick. I would say like we had the most technical issues of anybody in the world. Dancers are notorious for not being good with technology, I would say. So trying to get us all to figure out how to do the Google Meet with the grid and then flip the screen and everyone be in the right space and then interacting with that framing. I mean, it was a real debacle. Merica was so patient with us, and Harrison was a big help too. He really guided us through the technology. But yeah, that was the biggest challenge.
When the one step where we had to flip our y-axis, I was like, oh my goodness, this is beyond me. So Merica made it very clear for us.
The tools are set up for web conferencing and are not set up for dance. So we had to kind of hack them a little bit.
Was so patient with us.
So in order to get everybody in the right spot, that's why everyone's names are kind of funny. And then in order to have it look like a mirror, we had to flip the videos twice. So it was a little bit of a confusing, and it took many tries. We were like looking at Zoom collectively through Google Hangouts for dance. And then it was too slow of a latency, and so then this is all me trying to solve. And we went to like the Google Hangouts, and that was also sort of a disaster. So yeah, there's a lot of disasters along the way, but like a mirror, we had to got something performed today. So
yeah, challenges brew creativity. So we definitely had to figure something out.
We were like looking at Zoom. I think it was really fun working with George too, to just make new music, new live music, and then figuring out how we could make movement that dealt with like the delay and the Google Hangout. Yeah, there were some hurdles, but we tried them out. But gave them a shot. Something performed today. So.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of the dancers I have never actually danced with in a company, but kind of back to your question of how like film and stage is different. There's always that element of being on stage, of feeling other dancers and that collective energy from the group. And we somehow I felt that we could kind of recreate that in this format. We had to really be attentive when the technology was weird or, less reliable as just like looking at a person who's next to you. But definitely felt the energy of a live performance with other people in that sense. And that collective energy from the group.
Someone was asking if George has one of his pedals on.
Kind of recreate that.
I don't know what that means.
We had to really be attentive.
George, do you have a pedal on?
When the technology was weird or
no.
No pedal?
No, I moved away from the technical setup right now.
Yeah, no.
Definitely felt the energy of a live performance.
No pedals, by the way, whoever asked that question.
Indiana, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was trying to say that I think it's really special that we were all able to connect all over the world because we're all isolated and we all feel it, especially as dancers because we're always surrounded by each other, which is what you're talking about with performing. And being in the studio, one of the best parts is being with our colleagues, I think, for each one of us. And so being able to connect to people that I didn't know everybody in this project, and now I feel like I have more friends to connect with that are all over the world. And it's a really special way because the dance community is so small, even though it's so vast, it's everywhere, but it's so small, and through these little projects or big projects, you can connect each of those. Sorry, it's my phone. Each of those people and each of the companies and all the different styles and all the different personalities and cultures, and it's a really nice melting pot to bring together. So I think this project definitely did that. even if we're in isolation and, you know, going through hardships everywhere in the world right now. These little projects or big projects.
And on that note, it's like we're sharing from our individual homes. So there's like an intimacy to that. Like it was cool to see everyone in their space with their living rooms and their animals, what have you. But the craziest thing I'll never forget when we first kind of really figured out this technology and like we connected limbs or body parts or somehow, and I couldn't stop laughing. I could not stop laughing. I thought it was hilarious. And on that note, it was so cool to me. And that was literally, there was a physical unity, like from it was cool to see a cyber perspective. It was crazy.
I totally agree. It was the first time I saw it, and I was also like kind of giggling to myself at how clever it was. But that was both really beautifully put by both of you guys.
I think the one thing I would just say is that there are so many weird things you can do in this format. There's a lot of opportunity. I think it's just the very, very beginning.
It was crazy.
I hope someday it's more of like a hybrid.
The first time I saw it, and I was also
marriage or hybrid, because it just offers so much more advantage.
But that was
information, which is really nice.
Totally.
I think the one thing I would say is that
one thing I kind of pulled out that I wanted to talk about was last March, Peter Boll, who, for anyone who isn't listening, is the artistic director of PNB. He wrote this really great essay for Dance Magazine about what the dance world could learn from the art world when it comes to race inequality. And I just wanted to read one or two sentences and then sort of have a discussion about that, where he said, ballet continues to be an art form that fails to draw from the broader population. In an attempt to understand and address the whiteness of ballet, we must ask the right questions and seek answers and solutions. Which barriers exist for people of color? How does the environment feel to kids of color or their families? Whose parents resist the idea of ballet lessons for their sons or daughters, and why? Who doesn't see themselves on stage or at the front of the classroom? And so I wanted to, and I've been thinking about this a lot just in my own experience. I wanted to ask this group, who, you guys all come from different companies, what changes they're wanting to see in the ballet world. And I think that's one of the sort of, important conversations that's really happening right now, and whoever wants to go.
I think one thing I'd love to see personally is just like stories, that are modern. Yeah, like ballets that are told from the perspective of a person of color, or, a trans person, or anybody in any communities other than what is predominant right now, right? I think that would be really incredible. So I'm hoping that we start to see that shift.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. Also,
one second. I think there's a sound problem. It's probably my fault because I'm like logged in twice. So I'm gonna keep talking. I'm just gonna peace. So just keep talking, and then eventually you can say goodbye, and I'll just watch from over there.
Super. Yeah, I think kind of going off of that, when something feels very relevant to you, you're often drawn to it. And I think especially for like the Black community, sometimes ballet can feel irrelevant to them if it's not, if the subject matter seems kind of, irrelevant. It's about, something that you don't see reflected in your everyday life. And so I think that's one thing. And then also the more that people are drawn to it, the more comfortable you feel. Because I think also when I was a younger dancer, there is a level of discomfort when you don't see people who look like you around you or in the future of you. So just always asking why aren't people more drawn to it and what kind of changes might make sense. In order to draw more people and keep their attention and keep it relevant for them.
Totally agree.
I was thinking about what Cassie said, and I think that's so interesting. I never really thought about the standpoints of these romantic ballets that we perform all the time. And they're definitely from one perspective, and seems like it would be a perfect place to start to make it more relative for all people. And another thing that I was thinking about was in our company, there's some women that have maybe darker skin or lighter skin or whatnot, but always the tights are always really light and the point shoes are always light. And I think that if we are to be raised to not just see that we have to wear pink tights and pink point shoes because it's always been the way, I think if we make that coloring diverse, then, I mean, that's a really small thing, but maybe it could help make people feel welcome of all spectrums of different colors and cultures and things, because it's just a small detailing that every single person notices in a class. Yeah. Every single person without fail. It's your uniform. You wear it from the time you begin ballet till you end your career. You know, you wear those. I mean, after you're a professional, you can choose to wear shorts and whatever, but the premise of like wearing pink tights and pink point shoes, I think, is something that's changing, but I think it needs to be more radical and accepted in all schools from the get-go, you know?
For sure. I think also just on that point, like the ballet is so many things. You can't compare dancers to one another because it's not just about beautiful bodies. It's emotional and spiritual and like all of these things. And the beauty of the bodies and how they interact should be celebrated in like a real way. Yeah. Actually, I would love to take 2 more questions just from the audience, and then we'll probably want to wrap up. But Sophie asked, do you foresee this as an opportunity for a more engaging way for the spectator to experience live dance with a different view than looking at the stage, but more inclusive? And maybe this is not a new topic, but not solely triggered by the pandemic. So I think she's asking, you know, do we see these types of opportunities as like more engaging, for example, and more participatory? Anyone wants to take that?
I think it's tricky because I think that you can feel more participatory because you have to figure out the technology and you have to really pay attention to each angle and like how, like you say, the frame, you have a frame to be in. Mm-hmm. So it's less about feeling the whole just movement of what's happening and more on what we're focusing on. But I think there's something so special about the stage as well, just to say, I do think this is amazing. And I think that it's a really special platform, but I think that, like Merica said, a marriage would be really nice to see. Sorry, those are my dogs. I'll mute. Someone else go.
Gotta be.
I think the accessibility thing is really an interesting question. It's fun for me to watch my close friend Isabella, because she performs, you know, in one of the largest opera houses in the world for huge audiences, like 5,000 people. But then she'll host a YouTube live, or not YouTube live, but an Instagram live in her house and get more people than the opera house looking at her.
It's the sure.
I know it's not the same as like an opera house, but the fact that we can reach so many more people and it's not like a prestigious
for sure
institution that you buy. I mean, I think the money thing is really important. Paying artists is important, and so there's this challenge of new technology, but there's this amazing like ability, and I think that's what the question is about, is just is access, and we've already talked about it, but there's just this exciting thing that the dancers can have kind of more agency and can reach a larger audience, and it kind of like makes it more democratic. Whoever wants to come can come. Mm-hmm. They can wear whatever they want, watch from wherever they want, and there's not this status sort of division thing happening for art.
I think
Instagram was always really elevated. So
for sure, and I think Instagram helps with this, but it will also, I think, help bring dance more into culture in a way that we control versus everyone in this room being asked if we liked Black Swan for the rest of our lives, you know? Like we have a control over the narrative about how people are consuming dance if we're the ones putting it out there, you know? Okay, last question. This is a really good one. From your guys' experience, are there many new ballets that are being shown, written, that address these issues? Like the one that obviously popped into my mind was Kyle Abraham's work for City Ballet, but have there been, you know, works that you're really excited about, choreographers, that kind of thing?
I'm going to say there's a work that Justin Peck did recently, Times of Racing, where he was able to, the main couple was choreographed on a man and a woman, but several seasons later, he was able to use the same choreography for two men. And I think that's an example of progress. I think that there are different relationships that can be expressed with the same choreography. It doesn't have to be the same partnership. And I think that we need to see more relevancy that reflects a modern progressive art form rather than sticking to old things.
Yeah, or like just revisiting old things, because old things like Greek poetry, or there's sort of their timeliness, and they're really, really amazing, and I think they're amazing works of art. So and they can be revived, or they can be revisited and put in a new frame, or they can be next to new stuff. So it's like, but I think dance is so a lot of times wed to the old, and it could, at least ballet could come also to the new. So yeah.
Continuing on what Harrison was saying, the piece that I had most recently choreographed for P&B, the main parada, the main couple, I had 3 different casts for it, and it was really important to me that they were completely different. One of the casts was 2 women, one was 2 men, one was a man and a woman. They all had to do the exact same choreography. I didn't allow them to change it. They all had to do it. I also, in a different part, I had 4 dancers that were in these very long gowns, and you couldn't see their faces. One cast was all women, one cast was all men. And same material. And I think that's...
We do the double tours now, so I don't see why not.
Right.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey. So actually, one of the reasons I wanted to share why I moved to Europe after dancing in San Francisco is because I wanted to actually work. We're talking about what's happening now and what's happening basically forever. So actually, my director, Sila Vicharkawi, I don't know if you know him, but he's a really incredible artist, and he creates so many pieces. They talk about every single thing and every single issue with the world, and he created actually one in 2006 about the history, what's happening between Congo and Belgium. I don't know if you know, but they did a lot to them, and I invite you to watch it if you want. It's in YouTube. The name is Mea Culpa, and for example, I think it's really interesting also to see, especially for what people are getting now to see, which is something that happened forever. But yeah, I wanted to share that.
That's so
and here in Europe, there is a lot of people creating, talking about reality. So yeah.
And I also wanted to add, Merica was mentioning kind of revisiting some older pieces of art, literature, things like this to draw from. And we can also remember that there's, a lot of African-American, Asian, Hispanic literature that dates back so far into history that we can also draw from that usually doesn't get kind of acknowledged, especially in like the ballet realm of art. And then in addition, like, you know, Les Grands Ballets, we were set to premiere right before everything kind of shut down. We were set to premiere work that was drawn from Haitian culture and traditions. And, you know, in Montreal, we have a huge Haitian population, kind of like pointing to your community and drawing from like such rich culture that already exists is another great way that makes it more relevant to people and their own ancestry and heritage and stuff.
That makes me so happy. And I think ballet needs to think less about where we come from and more about reflecting the community and the times of now. And I think that what I got from this was just that for young choreographers especially, like, we need your stories, right? Like, we need them. I think that's it for our Q&A. Oh wait, one more thing.
We just wanted to also acknowledge Donald Bird, who's a Seattle-based choreographer and artistic director of Spectrum Dance Theater. And most of his work is about social justice and the different things that we are going through in the world right now. It's very relevant, and he's incredible.
He is fantastic to work with, and he makes incredible work. We just got to work with him at P&B last season.
Yeah.
And he did a wonderful job telling the story of a single relationship ending, but there were maybe 20 dancers in the cast, and each one of us, each man represented the same man, each woman represented the same woman. We all were various universes, various things.
Yeah.
And he did a wonderful job of telling the story.
He's the best, everyone.
What's his name one more time?
Donald Bird.
Sweet. Writing it down.
Well, Ava, thank you for joining us last minute. Thank you, everyone, for joining us last minute. And the link will be up for a week. So I think more people are going to watch it. I know a lot of my friends are going to watch it later. And I thank you all very, very much. And we will have a post-show party at some point. I will let you know. But Ava, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Eva. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Merica. Bye.
Take care.